Hey, welcome to another Tea Time show with me, Mark Tillison. Today's show is about Google Ads demographic bidding. So what is this about? So we know that different people behave different ways, depending on what your site is selling or whether you're trying to generate leads. People of different ages and different genders are going to behave differently. That's going to affect your cost per conversion, or in an e-commerce store, the return on ad spend and the profitability you're making. So before we get into that, as usual, do subscribe and we'll give you more tips as we go along on Google AdWords and how to improve your performance and your return on your investment there. So our agenda today is how do we analyse AdWords performance for different demographics in search campaigns, what are the options for demographic targeting, and how do we make bid adjustments for demographics in our Google Ads campaigns. So let's dive into a Google Ads account. So the first thing to be aware of is you can only make demographic bid adjustments and you can only see demographic data within search campaigns and also display campaigns, but this show is all about search. You cannot see demographic data currently, and you can't make bid adjustments on Google shopping campaigns. Unfortunately, you might be able to have a workaround and maybe do something with audiences and similar audiences and that kind of stuff, which is a bit of a hack. But specifically today, we're going to be talking about search campaigns and doing demographic bid adjustments. So where can you find this demographic bid data? So I'm in a campaign and I'm actually looking at a specific ad group. Something to understand is that you can apply bid adjustments to demographic data either at campaign level or at individual ad group level. If your campaign is spending quite a big budget and you have quite a lot of data in quite a short space of time, maybe a number of weeks or a few months, if you've got enough data to make those adjustments ad group level, I'd probably do it there, but it does create a lot of work. If you've got 10 campaigns with 20 ad groups, that's 200 lots of demographic bids that you're going to have to adjust. So just think about that before you go diving into making changes at ad group level. This particular account I'm looking at and sharing with you today has quite a lot of traffic, and I'm just showing you one of the high traffic ad groups as an example. So if you head into the campaign or into the ad group, and then in the nav here, you'll see that I'm in the demographics section. And I'm showing a decent volume of data here. So we're looking at a period of several months. And then I've got these columns, so you can add your columns in here. And I'm looking at my cost per conversion, conversion value over cost, this is an e-commerce store, and how many conversions and so forth as well. So I'm first looking at this in the age section, so I can compare how the different age groups convert and how much more profit they make this particular website. So I'm looking at really, don't worry too much about your overall metrics for the entire account or for the entire campaign. Really, what we're looking at in this case is just this ad group, so it's the comparison between just the ages. So if my conversion value over cost for the whole account is 6, I'm not going to lower the bids on all of these because some of them perform better than others. So the reason that they're all at 3 and not 6 might be keyword related. It's not related to 45 to 54-year-olds behaving differently to 35 to 44-year-olds. So we're looking at comparative data here. So you know, the reason that overall this is 3.25 to 1, or my cost per conversion is £14.45 for this whole ad group, is not related to the ages in it. So what we're looking to do is just say, well, how do they compare against one another? What's my average for the group? My average is 3.25 here, so I'm going to want to adjust my bids down for groups that are below that figure, or adjust them, increase them for groups that are higher than that. Because I want my ads to be in higher position, I'm happy to pay more per click. So that's the important thing to think about. So again, just to recap, don't worry about your overall cost per conversion. We're only looking at a comparison within this particular ad group at the moment. So we can see 3.25. I can look at this and say, well, hang on a minute, 18 to 24 year olds really don't convert too well on this website for the same keywords as all the other age groups, and all I need to do to adjust that is edit it here and then decrease that, and I'm going to decrease it a chunk because that's quite a long way below. So let's make that more like 25% and save it, and then that will obviously apply that. This one's kind of within the tolerance. This group's a little bit low again, so I'm just going to change that to decrease, and I'm going to drop that 10%. The other thing to remember is when you're making these adjustments when the auction happens, your bid is going to be, let's say, £1, if that's what you're bidding on a particular keyword. For this group, 55 to 64, though, we might be reducing that by 10%. So actually our bid is 90p. However, we've got another adjustment potentially on the gender. So let's say that this is a 60-year-old male, and we've said that males don't convert too well either, and maybe reduce that by 20%. So that's going to be £1 multiplied by this 10%, deducting the 10%, sorry, which is 90p, and then we're also deducting another 20% of that 90. So we're deducting another 18p, which means our bid for a 60-year-old male is 72p. But then we could also have bid adjustments elsewhere for devices and locations, and they all combine. So remember, this 60-year-old male might be in London and might be on a mobile device, so we can have a bid adjustment for all of those things. So that's why it's important to look at this in isolation and say, okay, what are the age groups doing in comparison to the overall for this ad group, and increase or decrease. We've got other decisions to make on mobile versus desktop versus tablet. We've got other decisions to make about location versus location versus location. And of course, keyword versus keyword, or product ad versus product ad. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of attributes competing against one another and supporting one another you need to think of. So that's how we do bid adjustments just on the ages. If we move on to gender, we can then see male, female and unknown. Weirdly, the unknown group actually does pretty well. Females don't convert quite so well, so let's go ahead and decrease this one by, let's say, 15%. So remember our earlier group, so if this is a 60-year-old female who is searching, we've now got that 10% bid down to 90p from £1, and we've also then got another 15% reduction on that. So again, it's multiplying the two together, remember. So we've got bid adjustments there. Now, the last one, which is interesting, is household income, and there's not an awful lot of data coming through for this just yet, certainly in the UK, but it's definitely an interesting subject. So, if whatever the product is you're selling or service that you are selling is, then just think about and measure, and of course the data is going to be here. You can measure the relative performance of male versus female or different age groups as well, and here you'll be able to compare the different household income. So this begs the question, where does Google get this demographic data from? So rather like Facebook, and there's a whole load of videos about Facebook advertising on our channel, rather like Facebook, a lot of this data is aggregated from data, kind of absolute data that Google knows. So Google knows, because you have a Google account and you're logged into it, it knows your name usually, assuming you filled that in and you haven't put Fred Blogs. It knows your name, it knows your age because you told it, and it knows your gender. If you are not logged in, then it's going to infer a lot of that data as well. So based on the information it knows about 60-year-old women, if you behave and visit a lot of similar sites and type things in a similar way into Google, and the types of search queries and the things that you are interested in, the sites you visit and so on, if your behaviour closely correlates with a data set of 60-year-old women, then Google is going to put you in that age range and that gender. So it's not perfect data, and we don't expect it to be. And for me, to be honest, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. This could say, these are apples, oranges, bananas, and fish. It would make no difference. If bananas convert better and give me a better return on ad spend, I don't care if they're male or female. I don't care about any of that data, really. All I want to do is adjust the bid for oranges or apples or bananas based on performance. It's as simple as that. So I don't really mind how accurate that data is, you know. So that's my perspective anyway. You know, I view it in a very mathematical way. So that's a very, very quick view of your AdWords demographic bidding options and how to do that in your Google Ads campaign. If you've enjoyed that, do subscribe and catch us next time for more tips on Google Ads.